Hello, everybody. Welcome to the regular business meeting of the District of Squamish for Tuesday, December 2nd. Holland Squallen, Quis Tuktumut, plus Squamish Okmeo. As always, we're gathered to do our work today on the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. Please be advised that this council meeting is being live streamed, recorded, and will be available to the public to view on the District of Squamish website following the meeting. If you have concerns, please notify the corporate officer present at the meeting. In this case, that'd be Ms. Vaughn Boudreau. Could I have someone move adoption of the agenda? Moved by Councillor French, second by Councillor Greenlaw. All in favor? Motion carries. So we don't have any delegations this evening. So we'll go on to the item 4, which is unscheduled public attendance. So council now invites members of the public to present matters that are either urgent or relevant to an item on the agenda and cannot wait until the next regular business meeting. Is there anyone who'd like to use that opportunity? Come on up. I have you'll be at the podium. I just have a quick script for you before we go, just to make sure we're on the same page. So you will have, so members of the public will be invited to address council and must state their name and provide a short sentence regarding the item they wish to discuss, and most importantly, why it's important that we hear about it at this meeting. And then council will consider that vote, and if supported, you would then have time to address council. It is a bit of a challenging structure from time to time, so I like to make sure everyone's oriented. So with that, if we could start with your name and a short sentence or two regarding what you wish to discuss.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for hearing me. My name is Lizzie McLaughlin. I'm a resident here in Squamish, and I'd like to make a comment on, I believe it's in consent agenda, so 6A3, the upcoming sale of a portion of the Pioneer lands. I'd like to make a comment about the future community benefit of the remainder of those lands before that sale goes through, which is why I'm here tonight to speak at this council meeting.
Thank you very much. So 6A3 in the consent that'd be in the meetings or the minute meetings of November, regular business meeting, November 18th. Is that correct? Just make sure we're all talking about the same piece. So council, we've heard what the topic is. Any consideration here? Councillor French?
I'll move to hear from our constituent.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Stoner. Okay, any comments before I call the vote? No? Any comments on this before I call the vote? Okay, go ahead.
Just a procedural in terms of legal and so on, because there's a pending agreement sale and all of that. Like, is there any pitfalls or stuff we need to be aware of hearing this topic at this time?
I think the risk is unlikely to be in listening, which is what this mechanism is for. So I'll look to our corporate officer. Would you like to add anything before I call the vote on this matter?
That's correct. And it's specifically regarding the motion that we're bringing forward into the open at the bottom of the regular business meeting agenda. So specifically within the content of that motion.
Okay. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. So you now have 5 minutes to address council. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity. As I said, my name is Lizzie McLaughlin. I'm very lucky to live here in Squamish, to own a home here, and to have built a career in a community here in the Sea to Sky over the last 9 years. I'm here tonight because I know that those opportunities I've had aren't available to all of our community members. Another item on your agenda tonight, Squamish is now the second most expensive community in BC, more expensive even than Vancouver to live in. And to me, it's clear that things aren't working and that living here is only getting harder and harder for people who keep our town running. But I really believe that there are things that we can do, and we have opportunities here to develop affordable, accessible housing on our public lands, along with infrastructure and facilities that our community needs to thrive. So, as a community member and a resident, I was disappointed to see in that agenda item that another 8.5 acres of public land is about to be sold to a private developer. Public lands are our greatest assets, and once they're gone, they're gone. They can no longer be be used to bring long-term benefit and opportunities to our community. But I was pleased to see in your press release about the sale a commitment to explore other options for the remaining 8.5 acres to maximise community benefit. I know affordable housing providers in this town have submitted proposals to buy and develop some of that land to provide affordable housing for the community in perpetuity. For me, this is a vital opportunity that we cannot afford to pass up. So I came here tonight to ask Council to please put the community's most pressing need first for the remainder of these lands and prioritise affordable housing developments. Affordable housing projects would keep public lands for public benefit forever. They would raise funds to contribute to critical infrastructure projects. They could create public amenities like parks and commercial space, daycares and social services that we all need. But most importantly, they would provide stable, affordable homes for the people who keep Squamish running, who are raising their families here, who love this town and want a future for themselves here. I'm one of over 900 people now who've signed a petition in town that is speaking exactly to this really pressing need. And, you know, I think like many of them, I dream of a Squamish that isn't the second most expensive place in BC. I dream of living in a community where people can survive and not just thrive. And I do see that we need to start making different decisions now to make that future a reality for all of us. I think we can really start by choosing a different path for the rest of the Pioneer Way lands. So I hope that you can do all you can to collaborate with the community to make that happen. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions or for our guests? Not seeing any. I'll move receipt of the submission, and we'll go for a round of comments following that if it's seconded. Councillor Stoner seconds. So thank you very much for coming to see us tonight and for your interest in this. And I think it is, I will say that no decision around any pieces of municipal, well, actually no decisions in this room were taken lightly, but in particular pieces around municipal held properties. And you're absolutely right. Affordable housing is a huge need in our community, and there's a large number of ways we're moving to support those initiatives, and there's more to do. And so thank you for bringing forward your feedback as to what could happen specifically with those remainders of those lands. And that discussion will be a topic for another day. I just want to be clear on expectations of tonight, but I look forward to those discussions. Councillor Stoner, I see you reaching for the mic. I'm going to count that as your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Thanks so much for being here this evening and taking the opportunity to speak to the importance of not just public lands for public good, but public lands for housing. Our community doesn't work if we don't have housing for those who make our town operate. As a board member to Housing Squamish, I know well that there are limited opportunities with public land, whether it's district-owned, Crown-owned lands within our boundaries to actually advance the issue of affordable housing. Later on our agenda today, we have a request also for lands for marine search and rescue, and we have requests for lands for up at the airport for land search and rescue. The needs in our community are long and important. I continue to argue that housing has to be a top priority. We also, as a municipality, need to provide fire halls and public works facilities. And so many folks have been asking me around the disposition of these lands. It kind of felt like it came out of left field. This was actually very well planned for. We knew that we needed to dispose of some land in order to pay for the over $70 million that we have invested in core infrastructure. We gave ourselves a 12-month runway to try and come up with something innovative that was going to both meet the needs in order to fund that investment, as well as try and provide some broader community benefit. And the process where we ended up is where we are, but there's still 8.5 acres of that land, where I think that there is a commitment, I think, around this table, around our community to try and figure out how best we make that serve all the needs of our community. It's only 8.5 acres. It's not going to get us across the line on all the needs, but it will definitely have a whole other envisioning process around it on how we actually get there. But thanks for continuing to advocate for housing in our community.
Very happy to.
Thank you, Councillor French.
Thank you for bringing the concern. The unscheduled public attendance doesn't get used very often, which is a little bit surprising to me. And so when it is used and we hear from an articulate citizen who is respectfully sharing a real and legitimate concern, I appreciate that. It's helpful feedback. I learned something. I didn't realize there was a petition. So in supporting this motion, I will be looking for that petition to understand the wording and see if it's grown from the 900 that it's sitting at now.
Thank you. Any other comments on this? Go ahead, Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, there's not much I can add to some of the articulate things that my colleagues have said, but I do want to thank you for coming here. That is a massive priority for ours. I just lost a friend this morning to the affordability crisis in Squamish, and it's devastating to our community. And it is something we take very seriously around this table. And it's also just very important to keep advocating and advocate on all the channels you can, because this is actually a provincial jurisdiction. So hit them up too. It is a crisis that's affecting our entire nation, and we are definitely a victim of it here. So I appreciate your advocacy, and I want to thank you for coming here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. No. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? No, motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to address council through the unscheduled public attendance? Seeing none, we'll move on to consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull anything from the consent agenda? I'll start actually with the item, where are we at? 6B1, which is the marine search and rescue facility. Councillor Stoner, would you like to pull anything?
Yeah, I'd like to pull item 6B3, please.
6B3. 1 and 3. Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, I'd like to add 6B4. Oh, sorry, 4 and 6. I'm bundling those together.
Consent agenda is getting lean. Is there anyone else, which is fine, but is there anyone else like to pull any other items? Seeing none, can someone move the remainder of our consent agenda? Moved by Councillor Hamilton, second by Councillor French. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. So we'll deal with those pulled items at the appropriate time later on in the agenda. So we're going to go first to the item 7A1, which is the District of Squamish fees and charges bylaw. Number 3185, 2025, and this is the amendment bylaw, number 3205, 2025. I think we're gonna require a quick recess to get to this item. So we'll take a 5-minute recess and we'll reconvene the meeting. So we are recessed. Thank you. All right, we are back and we are ready to discuss the fees and charges bylaw. I'll turn over to staff to introduce themselves and run us through the presentation.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Laura Turner, Director of Financial Planning and Reporting. I'm here with Heather Boxrud, General Manager of Finance, IT, and Procurement. And we have a very short presentation to bring forward the 3 readings of the 2026 Utility Fees and Charges Bylaw. At the October 28th Utility Fund Budget Workshop, staff presented the draft operating budgets for water, wastewater, and solid waste utility funds and the utility rate increases required for 2026. The budget was deliberated and Council approved the 2026 utility rates for inclusion in the fees and charges bylaw. Therefore, we're here today as the final step recommending 3 readings of the utility fees and charges bylaw in order to take effect in January. The 2026 rate increases approved on October 28th include a 1.8% increase for water, which is the recommended reserve contribution under the Asset Management Reserve Funding Strategy, a 7.2% increase for wastewater, which is based on 3.4% under the Asset Management Reserve Funding Strategy, plus a further increase of 3.8% to increase for the increased operating expenses of the utility. A solid waste collection rate increase of 5.2% for all tote sizes, which is made up of 5% for debt servicing costs plus 0.2% as per the Asset Management Reserve Funding Strategy. And lastly, landfill tipping fees with various increases to account for fixed and variable operational costs of the landfill. Presented here is a reminder of the 2026 flat rates and curbside collection fees approved by Council, including $518 for water, $719 for wastewater, and $448 for medium garbage totes, $243 for small, and $675 for large. And that concludes our brief presentation. So I'll turn it back to Council, noting the recommendation for approval.
Thank you very much. Council, questions about what we've seen? I know we've looked at this a couple times to this point, or if someone wants to take us right to motion, we're welcome to do that too. Councillor Hamilton?
I actually had a question about one of the changes in the actual bylaw itself. And this has to do with the metered industrial, commercial, institutional, section 4. It's when you're turning the meters on and off. There's some changes to the language there. And it seems to me like we used to have a $50 fee for the service during regular working hours, and then a charge actual cost to the municipality outside of working hours. When I read the language now, I don't understand how much we charge during working hours, and I'll read it. When the consumer or owner of the property requests the water to be turned off during a time other than the regular working hours, it explains that, but it never explains what the fee is during working hours. Is that intentional? Or can anybody tell me what the fee is for turning water on and off during working hours?
Through the chair. So that fee was actually reviewed as part of the original fees and charges bylaw that went in September, I believe. And so the intent was to actually revise so it's all at cost. So during business hours and after hours. So during business hours, it would take approximately 2 hours at regular time, or after hours at overtime. So in order to recoup the full cost, they would do it at cost instead of the $50 flat rate.
Okay, so am I misreading the bylaw? I don't see where it says what the fee, that fee is charged during hours. Right now it says requests the water to be turned off during a time other than the regular hours. So it doesn't specify what the fee is during working hours.
Could we get a page number?
Yeah, it's page 94 of 124. item under metered, item 4. Is that correct, Councillor Helmston? That's right. Okay.
To the chair, we might just need more clarity because we're reading it as turning the water off shall be charged the actual cost to the municipality. So that would be the hourly, yeah, in both cases.
I see that part, but if the first sentence, when the consumer or owner of the property requests the water to be turned off during a time other than the regular working hours. So that explains the fee for turning the water off outside of regular working hours. What is the fee during working hours? I see that the intent was to include both during working hours and out of working hours, but the wording of the bylaw is confusing to me.
Through the chair, I think we'll have to take that back. I believe it's somewhere else in the actual fees and charges, and this is just referring to the cost of overtime. But we'll have to take it back and clarify for you. Don't have it on hand.
Sure. I think it's it's not a fundamental concern, just looks like a quirk. Thanks.
Just on this point, we're being asked for readings for consideration of 3 readings. We've got one little thing. Would we like to do, we can go around with questions and then maybe have a timeout to have this addressed? Or is this something, I have a hard time thinking that small thing would warrant a, only giving a limited number of readings. I know we have a timeline for adoption. So maybe before I accept a motion from council, I'll go to you folks to see what you'd like to do on that particular item. So I'll give you some time to think about that. Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I had a question about the changes to landfill tipping fees, and apologies if I didn't catch this in our earlier conversation, that we were now going to require a minimum charge to deposit recyclable material of $10. And can staff just walk me through the rationale again for why we're doing that?
Thank you for the question. I believe Ms. White is online, is able to join us to speak to anything to do with the landfill tipping fees.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
We can. Thank you for joining us.
Great, thank you. Hi, it's Shannon White, Integrated Solid Waste Specialist with the District of Squamish. Thank you for the question. This is a new tipping fee, so it's always good to have it discussed with council. And so this tipping fee is essentially, it is a charge that is applied anytime someone goes over the scale at the landfill to drop off a recyclable that currently has a $0 associated with it, tipping fee. So that right now is metal, glass, styrofoam, propane containers. That's right now the only items across the scale. Oh, excuse me, and electronics. And so the cost, this new tipping fee is, it's not applied per item. It's if someone goes over and drops off any of these items and they're not paying a garbage fee as well. And the reason is because we do have fixed and operating costs associated with all of those items I just list, such as bin rentals, our contract for operating and maintenance of the site, and things like that. So there's a cost anytime we move those items and handle them and recycle them. And this is just trying to recuperate some of that so that the costs at the landfill site are kind of spread more evenly and not just applied to the items that currently have a fee associated with it.
Thank you for providing that rationale. If I may just have a follow-up. I believe that there are other locations where folks can recycle electronics, metal, and glass. Is that the case also for propane? I'm just, I guess my concern is that by adding this charge, it'll just be easier for folks to put some of these materials in their curbside garbage, which is not what we're trying to incentivize.
Great. Thank you through the chair. Excellent follow-up question. We do currently also have a minimum $10 garbage rate as well. So we've aligned that so that basically anyone using our facility over the scale is paying $10. And yes, there is locations throughout the community where all of these items for residents can be disposed of, including propane containers. They can be brought to ASM Metals right now. And we anticipate the largest impact will be on businesses because businesses are not supposed to use, for example, the Recycle BC depot in town for cardboard. Cardboard's a bad example because will remain free right now at our site, but styrofoam is a better example. Um, so we will no longer be subsidizing styrofoam recycling for businesses at our landfill site. There will be this $10 minimum charge.
Are you okay for now, Councillor? Other questions, Councillor Anderson?
Yes, I wonder if I could take the opportunity to ask about a line item in Schedule 12, the landfill tipping and residential curbside collection fees, and that is soil and asphalt. There's no change. It's $0 per ton. The first matter is why soil and asphalt would be the same rate. I understand that we require to bring in soil to the landfill as part of our landfill management. And we want to be competitive in that regard because there's other landfills nearby that are charging tipping fees. In fact, also on district land. But why is asphalt there in that same category? If I could get some clarification of that, why do would we desire asphalt for the same reason we require soil? If you may be able to elaborate on that, Ms. White.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I apologize. I can't see the video of the chair, so I'm assuming you're nodding at me.
Yes, please.
Thank you. So great question. So soil and asphalt are in the same category. We both use them at the site, but actually in slightly different manners. I will just say that we did actually try charging $5 per ton for asphalt, and we saw a dramatic decrease of material that came to our site. So we do need asphalt, so we lowered it to 0. And the only soil we take at our site is actually through District of Squamish operations. We don't take external soil because there's too much. We don't need that much soil. And so soil is used at the landfill as cover, which is required by the Ministry of Environment for the management of our site. So to cover up uh, uncovered garbage, essentially. And then asphalt, we actually mix it with glass and that's how we build the roads on the site because we get a lot of rain, for example. So we can't build roads just out of dirt over the garbage because it would just become a mud pit right away. So we actually build roads within our site out of asphalt and crushed glass. And then once that road is no longer used, we actually scrape it up and reuse the asphalt. So we don't use a lot of asphalt either. And so we kind of get just actually the right amount of asphalt at our site. And that's why they're both $0 and the same line item in our tipping fee schedule.
Thank you, Ms. White. It whets my appetite for a future tour. Thank you.
Just on this point, you said that the only soil that we accept is from our own municipal operations. What's the value of having it in here at $0 per ton, sort of implying that we would accept other soils, just versus just removing that from this particular item?
Thank you through the chair. We've left it in because there's always the occasion that we might need external soil. Every now and then, we like to say we've turned on the soil tap when we need more soil, and district operations hasn't provided enough. And so I think the rationale, we could always remove it, but the rationale is that it's in there. We acknowledge it's $0, and there always could be an increase in tipping fee if we ever needed to do so. Our site is very small though right now and that's why we need very little soil for our operations.
Yeah, thank you. Just is the what's accepted overall and not accepted outright captured elsewhere? I mean, we're having this discussion looking explicitly at the fees and charges associated with. So, like, how I'm having I don't know how to score if this having this on this table is material at all to what's happening on the ground at the landfill. Could you speak to how we communicate items that are prohibited outright?
Yes, thank you through the mayor. We actually in our solid waste and utility bylaw, one of the appendixes, um, I believe it's B, but don't quote me on that. It's one of the appendixes, has all of the prohibited items for the landfill, and I believe there's over 50 items listed. If council wishes, I can dig that up,
No,
perhaps during the
thank you.
timeout.
That's
But yeah, there's
for,
significant
for
amount of
me
items listed.
yeah, that answer is sufficient for me. I just that's captured elsewhere, and yeah, I'll leave it there. Council, any other questions? I think I've seen in the background an answer coming forward here. So I'm going to go to staff first, then I'll come back to you. I can see that there's been some huddles. Do we have output of those conversations on the matter around the turn off or the water issue within business hours outside of so on? Okay, over to you.
Through the chair. So we do have a revision that we would suggest by just deleting that during the time other than regular working hours. And then it would encompass all calls. Okay.
Okay. And any additional? Yep.
Sorry, through the chair, I'll just add that that'll be on the metered industrial, commercial, institutional, as well as the metered multifamily residential. So 2 pieces.
Oh, the same issue happens in multiple places. Okay, great. Thank you. We'll discuss how we incorporate that by way of motion when we get there. Councilor Pettingill?
Yeah, I couldn't resist and taking the bait on the soil and asphalt. Having this in our bylaw, does that compel us to take what people bring? Or do we have another layer elsewhere in our bylaw that says, like, if we've got enough or more than enough, we can say no, notwithstanding we've got a fee and a line and everything?
Thank you through the chair. Is my understanding that's an operational decision. So we have the ability to take what we need, and we don't have to say that we don't take it.
Okay. So council, we've I don't see any other hands. I'm through my speakers list for questions. We've heard that there are 2 sections that would be have some language removed. Would you like? I'm just looking to staff. We have the recommendation for 3 readings, and then there's this matter of the modified language. Do we have a suggestion on how to capture that, Ms. Von Ledome?
I do. So the suggestion would be to provide first, second, and third reading to the bylaw with the following amendments to Schedule 24, which is water rates, by deleting metered industrial, commercial, and institutional, by deleting from the following metered industrial, commercial, and institutional section other than regular working hours, and then number 2, by deleting from metered multifamily residential the following other than regular working hours. So the language would be deleted in both sections.
Okay. I'll make that motion if there's a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Yeah, I'll be brief on this. Thank you so much for all the work on this, and to my colleague Councillor Hamilton for getting tripped up on those words, and for us, and I think it led to a stronger document in the end. So I'm happy to support, and I know that there's so many factors go into setting these fees, from cost recovery to desired behavior to our own needs as of our facilities. So I'm happy with the rationale that I've heard around around all of these, and I think in the grand scheme of things are quite appropriate and actually quite reasonable. So thank you so much for the work on this. Other comments? Councillor Stoner?
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Thanks to staff for the work in developing the 10-year financial plan that led us to this bylaw. As Mayor Herford just said, there's many components that go into developing what the utility fees are going to be in order to ensure that we can provide an enhanced level of service. Many of the cost drivers in the percentage increases that we're seeing here today is around either pre-committed costs for labor and or service level changes to try and enhance the amount of services that we're able to provide through these utilities, making sure that they're consistent and reliable for our community, as well as putting enough money aside to make sure that we can replace some of the infrastructure over time as per our 10-year financial plan. And in particular, I think it's important for the community to recognize 5% of the solid waste utility fee increase of that 5.2% is being used to help manage some of the debt servicing costs that will expand our landfill, because there's a very large ticket item that is coming in a few years that will require us to expand our landfill horizontally. And so we are doing the work of starting to put some money aside now, so that it's not a huge rate increase when that time comes that we need to do that work. And so hopefully our rate users will see a smooth in cycle over time, but also recognize that this is a substantive rate increase, especially in the wastewater utility fee. But that is also important for many reasons, as we discussed in late October. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner, if I just have you turn your camera on. We missed that, but thank you for your comments. Any other comments on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And thanks for the support on cleaning up that the language. So next, we are on to item 8A, the alternative approval process 2025 loan authorization bylaws. The floor is yours when you're ready. Did you turn your microphone on so folks can hear you online? Thank you.
Okay, there we go. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Victoria Ray. I'm the Manager of Legislative Services for the District of Squamish. And this evening I'm joined by Melissa Bomblodo, Director of Corporate Administration. The purpose of my presentation this evening is to obtain Council authorization to proceed with the alternative approval process opportunities for the 4 loan authorization bylaws listed on the screen. All 4 loan authorization bylaws received first 3 readings at the June 3rd, 2025 regular business meeting, They were then sent to the Inspector of Municipalities for approval, which was received on September 2nd, 2025. For the bylaws to be adopted, elector approval must be received pursuant to Section 180 of the Community Charter, which requires municipalities to seek approval either from assent voting or the alternative approval process. Assent voting is also known as a referendum and requires the majority of the electors to vote in favour of the borrowing prior to the bylaws being considered for adoption. The alternative approval process requires electors to submit a response form directly to the district if they are opposed to the borrowing. If less than 10% of the total number of determined electors submit a response form by the established deadlines, then a bylaw may then be considered for adoption. Staff recommend proceeding with the alternative approval process rather than assent voting to obtain elector approval. Council resolution is required to establish the following. First is the deadline for response forms to be submitted, which must be a minimum of 30 days after the first statutory notice. Staff are proposing the deadline to be February 16, 2026. Second is the electoral response forms, which are included in the agenda package for council review. And finally, the fair determination of electors, which is calculated to be 21,897 from the most recent voters list from Elections BC in November 2025 and population projection numbers. If council approval is received this evening, staff intends to start the alternative approval process in January of 2026. The statutory notices will be posted in this chief newspaper on January 8 and 15 and advertised in the e-news and district website. Elector response forms will be available at Municipal Hall and on the District of Squamish website starting January 8. Staff are proposing the deadline as Monday, February 16th, 2026, and elector response forms must be submitted to the corporate officer prior to this deadline. After the deadline, the corporate officer will determine and certify the total number of the electorate responses received, and if the number of responses is fewer than 10% or 2,190 of the eligible electors, then the bylaw will receive approval of electors and may proceed to adoption. If the number of responses is greater than the 10% threshold, then the bylaw would most likely have to proceed to assent voting before it can be considered for adoption. And on the screen, I have a recommendation for council, which is to initiate the alternative approval process opportunities in accordance with Section 86 of the Community Charter for the 4 loan authorisation bylaws below. So that's bylaw 3160, 3162, 3164, and 3166. And approve the following parameters for each of the alternative approval process opportunities. So each of the alternative approval process opportunities will be open to all eligible electors and non-resident property electors of the District of Squamish. The deadline for receiving completed elector response forms will be 4:30 p.m. on February 16, 2026. And the form and content of the elector response forms is as presented in attachments 1 to 4 to the Corporate Services Report presented at the December 2nd, 2025 regular business meeting. And finally, the number of eligible electors is determined to be 21,897, and the 10% threshold for the alternative approval process is 2,190. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll start us off with a question, then I'll go to my council colleagues. I'm wondering about, we've had challenges with this process with some, that I believe came from misinformation around what the projects were and so on. So I understand what we're talking about today and what we're approving is this, the points that you just had up on the screen. But as far as if the member of the public is interested in these pieces, how are we supporting them getting the details of the projects that these are meant to be enabling?
Through the chair, there are project web pages available on the District of Squamish website, which will be linked through the alternative approval process website, which is on all of the forms. The only project that doesn't have a website is for the fire truck. I understand that that project is, sorry, just let me check my notes for a minute. It's a scheduled 20-year replacement of frontline equipment, so no additional equipment is being purchased. It's a replacement.
So sort of a almost fleet replacement sort of
Correct.
level. Okay. Okay, Council, questions on this? Councillor French, then Pettingill.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. I'm going to pick up on the drainage project because I'm not sure what that's going to look like. So when I was reading through this, I too was reflecting back on the first AAP for the Public Works building and the challenges we had there. And so I discovered that there's great info on the alternative approval process. Like I went through our information on that and it was clear to me. Same with the flood protection upgrades and the Whitaker pump station. And then I used the district website search function to look for loggers, east drainage diversion pipe, and nothing comes up. As we sit here today, as far as I know, there are no details available. So I just am looking for confirmation of what I think I just heard is there is information somewhere. It just needs to be packaged and published and linked back to the AAP. Am I understanding that correctly?
One moment, we're just going to check, but I believe so, yes.
I'm going to resist the temptation to try to multitask with questions on this, so we'll just give them a moment to clarify. And I'll just offer to staff, if we need to, we can continue with questions and we can take a time out before we get to the motion if that's needed.
So through the chair, there is a page which is for the Loggers East storm sewer upgrades.
And we'll confirm that
We'll confirm, yeah.
linked through the AAP as well.
Okay. So I also, in doing my deep dive to try and figure this out, came across some numbers. It looks like the full cost. So our numbers now are indicating the full. Oh, no. 2024, council approved borrowing $1.3 million. And at that time, that was for a $3.1 million project that had similar wording. So is this $1.2 million in this AAP combining with the $1.3 million borrowed in 2024 as part of the overall $3.1 million project?
Brianne Sousa, Director of Financial Operations. So, sort of. In 2024, in the 2024 to 2029 financial plan, a project was approved for 3.1 million and it had borrowing of, let me just double check here, the 1.3 million that you're speaking to. And that went through the loan authorization process. So subsequently in the 2025 to 2030 financial plan, after detailed design was completed, the costs did increase as well as DFO, Department of Fisheries and Oceans requirements came in that required culvert replacements. So the cost did increase for the project, which is why you're now seeing an additional authorization for that same project.
Okay, and so just to be crystal clear, this is going to pave the way for additional borrowing for that project.
Yes, that's correct.
Thanks, Mayor Herford.
Thank you. And just as a reminder that when something gets to this point, it's been through, it's I'm not picking on those questions, they're valid questions, but for anyone engaging on this, when things get to this point, they've been through our budgeting process and this is a last touch point. So we've authorized these projects through other discussions. This is really specifically about the executing going for borrowing. So there isn't a decision here about yes, no on any of these projects. That's all been done through our previous process. Just for whoever may be tuning into this at some point as they're making a decision about signing an AAP form. So I've got Councillor Pettingill next.
Yeah, just following up on the AAP anxiety, which I share with some of my colleagues, and I think it was last term actually. But just, and I believe we've had one or two subsequent AAPs where we didn't have an issue. It was this one where there was a misinformation campaign and it cost delays and cost the taxpayer a lot of money. And I think we don't want that to happen again. So just wondering about, and at the same time, I don't want to sort of go overboard on information about stuff that is quite obviously critical and sort of won't get into the whole other topic of should we be doing AAPs for critical infrastructure or why does the province make us do this? But anyways, what is our ability if we start to see something bubbling up like, oh, for whatever reason, there's another misinformation campaign, we need to respond. Do we have the flexibility to pause on this or do we have to see it through and then go back to the province and say like, hey, what do we do here? Because this is critical infrastructure and like, can we pause or like once we vote, if we support this, we're going and there's no turning back?
Because council is passing a resolution to establish a legislated deadline, we can't turn the clock back. We need to see it through till the end and then determine how we move forward. Because if we pause it and we were to get over the 10% threshold, the next step would be dictated through the legislation. So for transparency's sake, we should see it through.
I think in addition to that, I do think that, if we hear or if we see that there's a misinformation campaign, something going on, pausing it isn't an action that we can take, but there can be some pieces through our communications network, make sure we're building out the information and getting the correct information out. So it's not that we can do nothing, but we need to, once this is in motion. So if that's at least my take, and I'm seeing nodding at the table, so I think we're on side. Any other questions on this? Oh, Councillor Hamilton, sorry.
Thanks very much. This isn't actually so much a question about these borrowing, the items we're borrowing, more about the annual taxpayer impact. So I'm going to take the flood protection as an example. So a total borrowing of $2 million has an annual taxpayer impact of 83 cents per residential owner. Is that per resident? Like, is this per some calculation per resident, or is it per roll, per property roll?
Through the mayor, it's per roll, not per person.
And just if I can, on the bottom of page 1, where that appears, which is page 114 of 124, there is a little notation at the bottom, number 2. The taxpayer impact is an estimated amount per $100,000 of assessed property value, unless otherwise noted.
Thank you.
Okay, that was
no more questions.
No, I thought that might actually trigger more questions.
No.
Oh,
thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on this? We do have the recommended motion. Are you moving that? So, and these are all presented as we can move these all together. Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
That is what Councillor Stoner has done. I will second that comment.
Yeah, just briefly, the alternative approval process is a cumbersome one. Thank you for walking us through it, but appropriately so, legislatively robust, because it does mean that we are borrowing money on behalf of our taxpayers, and that puts an onus on us to make sure that our communications is as up to snuff as it needs to be in order for our residents to understand that these projects are important, that we need to borrow this money in order to provide flood protection and fire trucks and drainage for our community. People have questions about that. They should be able to have access to the information to make sure that that seems reasonable for them as well, because they will be the ones paying for it in the long run. And I think that this is very defensible. It has gone through our budgeting process. We are now past first 3 readings and approved by the Inspector of Municipalities. And welcome any questions that may come as this goes out for further review by our community. But I think this is also an important process to have, so we don't have to go out to electoral assent every time we need to borrow money, so that we can get through the work that we need to do in order to provide the services for our community. I'm happy to support the motion on the floor.
Thank you very much. Any other comments on this? Councillor Pettingill.
Just that I do support this, and I think just the challenge I have with the AEP process in particular is just, you know, if there is public concern about some of these things, it's making sure that we catch that and discuss that much earlier in the process, rather than sort of at the last minute where we've done sort of a year or two or more of planning, and then like we can see significant costs if you know, misinformation or whatever. So it's just I sort of want to be clear of where the concern is, and so it's not to disempower, or it's not that I don't want to hear about concerns. It's just how can we do a better job of making sure that where there are concerns, they're much earlier in the process.
Thank you. Any other comments? Just briefly, I'm speaking in support of the motion. I think a municipality's ability to borrow and to do so in a responsible way is important. It's a way to ensure that the folks that are going to benefit from these investments over time will contribute. Versus putting it, point loading it to the folks that are here today. I do find this process is challenging. We're not the only ones that have had challenges with it. When I look at these items, there's nothing here that I think can be construed or misconstrued as any sort of extravagance. These are all very important, critical pieces for our community. And I'm supportive of all of these initiatives through our other processes, but I do just want to point out that the fire truck, I think, is an interesting case study in just how fast things get more expensive. I remember, you know, in this particular item, I think we were at around $1 million, not that when I first sat in the seats in this room, and we've seen nearly a doubling, and that's probably a fair proxy for almost everything that we have to do, but it's harder to quantify them because every project's a little bit different and so on. But yes, we've seen dramatic cost escalations, and we're doing our best to grapple with those. But that's not to say I'm not supportive of this initiative and replacing making this investment. But really, it illustrates the complexity of doing the work that we are all tasked with doing as we sit here in this room. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, Council, moving through, we have no late agenda items, no correspondence action requested. We do have items referred from the consent agenda. We didn't have any minutes. It was all correspondence. So let's deal with these in the order that they appeared in the agenda originally. So we are back to what was item 6B1, which is the letter from the Royal Canadian Marine Search and Rescue regarding the marine safety facility. Now, I pulled this letter. I think that this is an important consideration for us we've always been an oceanfront community, I suppose, but as we've been evolving and growing, this particular aspect of the community hasn't seen the full sort of focus from a planning perspective. So I thought it was important that we surface this, and also I would move that we refer this to staff to report back on the concerns and solutions outlined in the letter to a future meeting. That's my motion here. Second by Councillor Hamilton. And just briefly, I think that I appreciate the recommendations and very detailed recommendations that were, or requests, I guess, in the letter. I think this just preliminary stage is really important that we get the staff perspective and so we can understand what is possible on the site, what it would take to to advance this work, and likely this turns into a combination of capacity, budget, and priorities. But I want to understand what that actually looks like before we go directing more specific work. Then, take this away and come back with some sort of high level feedback for us, so we can better contemplate the path forward. So that's why I wasn't more specific with this, but I am supportive broadly of this initiative. Any other comments on this? Go ahead, Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. And when I was going through the agenda package, I was originally planning to come with a motion that would have been combining the two recommendations in the letter. That would have been quite specific in giving staff direction. And I think where we're landing here is actually a better option in light of the fact that we don't necessarily have great insight into the staff work plans and abilities to take on something like what was specifically referenced in the letter. So I think your motion I support, because it gets us to a place that's most appropriate for where we're at with this.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
I would just like to make the observation that we have a marine action strategy that Council endorsed in 2018, and we should be mindful of the fact that the tasks or requests outlined here are all addressed in that strategy. We just haven't got to it yet, and perhaps we also need to devise a work plan to address them. But all of these needs are spelled out there for attention. And I agree with the Mayor Herford's suggestion, and that what we will have staff perhaps be able to discuss with staff is a work plan, how we address them, but in the context, I suggest, of the Marine Action Strategy. It is all laid out in that plan. We just need to sort out how we're going to take it on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton, then Stoner.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks very much to the Royal Canadian Marine Search and Rescue for putting together, for first of all, doing all the things you do. And second of all, really highlighting this to our attention so that we can action it. It really is quite clear to me that as we become a community that's more connected to the water, that we have more access to the water, we absolutely will need more marine search and rescue service. So yeah, I absolutely believe we need to keep pursuing all the opportunities we can here. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, happy to support the motion on the floor and have staff do a little bit more due diligence on the request presented. Also want to thank Mr. Walter and the Royal Canadian Marine Search and Rescue for all the work that has gone into exploring the options. I appreciate that there is some timing components here, both needed by Royal Canadian Marine SAR, but also that may coincide well with the work that's currently going on at Honaic Park. The offer for capital funding commitments is always beneficial and makes supporting these sorts of works a little bit easier. And the partnerships that have gone into making the conversations progress to where they are today, I think sets us up well to be in a position to engage our staff and see where we can find some partnership opportunities with the district as well. So happy to see staff mull this over and with the various pieces that we don't have visibility into around this table.
Thank you. And just before I call the question, I'd like to highlight it's not often that we see letters signed by multiple organizations, and I know it takes some doing to get to that point. And so just thank you for taking that for taking that on and speaking on behalf of those groups. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So next we have who pulled item 3? That was you. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This is a correspondence from our MLA, Jeremy Valeriote, drawing our attention to a private members bill that has been tabled at the legislature on the requirement for adopting a professional reliance model for local governments. There is significant concern, I think, among many local governments. We've received some correspondence, not just from our MLA, but from other local governments as well as UBCM. This bill has now advanced to the committee stage and passed second reading. And so there's the opportunity to provide written submission. The deadline to do so was originally December 2nd. It has since been extended to January 6th. And so I would like council to consider that the mayor write a letter of submission or a letter responding to the opportunity for consultation on Bill M216.
Just that, I appreciate that direction, that motion doesn't say what the content of that is. So I do think that engaging with working with our staff to develop that, I do think it needs to come to us as well. And that work is underway in the background. So motion here or not, I just want to I'll go to Ms. Glende on to speak to that.
Thank you, through the mayor. Yes, currently we have planning staff working on a draft to bring to council for consideration.
So with that in mind, would you be comfortable moving receipt of this, and then we can address that that draft letter when it comes to us?
Absolutely. I will move receipt.
I will second that.
May I make one more comment before we call the question?
You have your time.
As staff and the mayor are working on drafting the letter, I do think it's important to try and articulate just how much staff time, council resources are going into yet another make work project that is coming from the province on housing that is further slowing down our capacity to actually process applications. So if we could include some language around that into our letter, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
I'm resisting temptation to chirp a little bit on this file, but I'm gonna leave it there. I'll go to Councillor Pettingill. Maybe you'll do it for me.
Well, I might. Just for clarity, though, does staff have access to the LML, GA, and the UBCM letters on this?
I'll make sure that there's all that's there. Yep.
Okay. And just at a high level, I think one of the things that I'm I feel like there's something else going on here. It's such a strange proposal in my mind. And the thing that really rubs me the wrong way, it seems to be a proposal that if you have two experts with the same credentials, an expert representing a developer automatically trumps anyone with the same credentials at the municipality. And that's kind of the nub of what this says, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'm glad to hear that we will be looking at this because it's a strange one.
Yep. Thank you. I'm going to hold comments on this myself. So, but we'll look forward to that future conversation. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. I think was it you, Councillor Pettingill? You did 4 and 6. Are you treating those as the same?
Yeah, I wanted to move to forward these to the budget process, and then I'd speak to them if seconded.
Okay. Yeah, I'll second that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just think there's some worthwhile feedback and commentary from Tourism Squamish about some things that have changed in our financial plan. And it's a question which I don't need an answer to tonight, but it got me thinking of, there are some things in our plan which sort of got removed in 2025 or for various reasons. And I see some of these things they talked about, I didn't realize they'd come out of our longer term. And so as we go to a 10-year budget, when things fall out, sort of understanding at the right level, like, we don't do detailed work planning, but sort of some of these outward facing projects and plans I do think are important. And so I'm just wondering, sort of process wise, and again, maybe this is a follow-up conversation, but how we make sure we're sort of aware of some of these changes and so on. And maybe I just missed these. It's also a possibility. So just wanted to make those comments and look forward to Seeing the budget, was it the 12th? 9th? 10th? 9th. Okay, thanks.
I think were you talking about the public engagement piece?
I started thinking about our next meeting touch point, and I remembered that, and so it's kind of both. And
Let's not use this as a time to direct people to a time and place, because we're clearly not doing that. But yes, I look forward to those the next touch points on this. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously, and that captured both of those items, right? Okay. Let's make sure that that was item 4 and 6, and so next will be business arising from the minutes. None. Notice of motion. Council, no notice of motion. Open question period. If there's anyone that would like clarification related to agenda items, not seeing any hands for that. Councillor staff announcements. Who wants to lead us off? Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. I want to let council know that congratulations in order to Squamish Climate Action Network for winning the 2025 Edible Communities Sustainability Award. The award was given to Squamish Can to acknowledge the work that it does in strengthening food systems and zero waste, working towards zero waste. The impact the organization has on the community and its connection to sustainability. The nominees for this particular award represented cities and states throughout North America, so it's quite an honor.
Thank you. Other updates? Go ahead.
I've got a few actually. So had 2 chances to see Peter and the Starcatcher by Between Shifts Theater. The first time is the dress rehearsal with the vast majority of the Squamish Youth Council. And even the change and improvement between those 2 evenings is incredible. Both times, actually, though, is really enjoyable, a fun, really good sort of lighthearted, joyful play. And so you have another few days to catch it. So get your tickets and watch it. It's just fantastic. And thank you and congratulations to everyone who's been a part of that. Just wanted to highlight the engagement on the commercial neighborhood nodes tomorrow night. It's at St. Joseph's Church, I think. There was an engagement last week, which was really great information, good discussion. So hope people pick up on that. Youth councils tomorrow, so unfortunately I will miss the second neighborhood nodes with some of my colleagues' discussion. Chamber awards are on Friday. And then the last thing, some of us went to the Trans Day of Remembrance almost 2 weeks ago, and just a couple of things that have stuck in my mind from that is that people are feeling scared with, I think there's some appreciation for the work that we've done as a community, but the world's a pretty scary place for a lot of people right now. And one thing, when people, and I always appreciate when our staff introduce themselves and their pronouns. And I always thought it was just a way to sort of say, hey, we're with you. And we kind of acknowledge and support the different ways that people are. The one piece that I hadn't really understood before is that it also helps make a place safe, because then people don't have to ask or guess if this is a safe place when you take that step. And this is the piece I didn't catch on to before, that when you take that step, if you're in a position of safety and then you have that opportunity to tell other people that this is a safe place. And so I'm trying to reflect on, where I can do a better job of stating my pronouns, even though it sometimes feels a bit awkward for me. So thanks.
Thank you for that. Councillor Anderson.
I would like to second Councillor Pettingill's endorsement of the Between Shifts Theatre's Peter and the Starcatcher. And I'd like to highlight the fact that, and I didn't know this until after I'd seen the production, is that this is the very first time Between Shifts Theatre has done a musical. And the stars of the musical are the youth in this production, and it was really a treat. And that was the kind of the most memorable part of the performance of these youth in the musical, first ever for Between Ships Theatre. They did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone on this side? Okay, I'll go through a few highlights here. I'm just trying to get a date of one of these pieces that down. But since we last met in a regular where we have opportunities to discuss this, a couple highlights for me has been on the 22nd, went to the Squamish Fire Rescue Appreciation Dinner. It's always nice to see spend time with the fire family, such a close-knit group of people that keep us safe and help me sleep at night anyways by knowing that they're out there. Every year at this event, they also honor the long service awards as well as retirements. So it was great to see to sort of see that and really contemplate the level of commitment that our fire service members have over such a long period of time. So that was a great night out. And thank you for Councillor Stoner, who also attended. You after? Yeah. Oh, you want to chime in on this? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Just on the long service awards, I think it's important to note they recognized our chief, Aaron Foote, for 35 years of service. There were also 20 and 25 years that were recognized, but Chief Foote was recognized for 35 years of service. And I think it's important for council to know that.
Yeah, thank you for retaining that. I couldn't remember if it was 30 or 35. That's, like I said, I don't know what I've done for 35 consecutive years, except breathe and drink water. So I'm going to, a great night. On the 27th, a combo of things during the day. Fortis held its 12th community tables and updating the sharing their I guess reporting out on the project to date and looking ahead. This piece, I think, the sort of takeaway from this is for me at any rate is that I think all of all the tables up to this point, including this 12th one, and all the work that's been happening in the inside our organization has really been in preparation for what's going to happen this construction season we have ahead. So this is where urban works will commence, and we will see. I know folks around this table are familiar with the impacts of the project and lots of little pieces, but there's going to be lots of members of our community that this will be the first time that they really see and feel the construction efforts in the community. So we seem to have good communication, and we've had a couple and we've had learning opportunities, but really this is the piece. This next phase will be the most I expect it to be the most impactful to the community. They have gone to a version of drilling, so a less invasive than a cut and cover, but there will be a portion of Finch that will be impacted basically in front of that stretch by the RCMP facility. So I'll leave it to them to communicate those pieces going forward. But I do want to highlight that most of this project has happened out in the woods to date, but the next phases are the ones that are going to be right through the middle of the community. And I'm happy to see that cut and cover piece has been is no longer in play, and it'll be less invasive. However, it's right through the community. So we'll see. So that's coming ahead. And also I'm told that the peak in the workforce is behind us. We will have another sort of swelling of the workforce through the season, but it won't be as high as it was this year. And things otherwise seem to be on schedule for them and their project. That evening, Tourism Squamish and Chamber, the holiday mixer, was great sort of kickoff to the holiday season. It was a bit of exercise in contrast that day, and So that was nice to get out with members of the community there. On the 29th, I was on Bowen Island for some work with the House Sound Roundtable, and that supports the Equipsum House Sound Biosphere region. So it was great to get together with those folks and get some updates around what's happening around the biosphere, and yeah, a lovely, always nice to spend some time on Bowen and with some people that are very passionate about, as we all are, about House Sound. And also we've heard some comments around Peter and the Starcatcher. Was able to make it to a performance, and it was and had a great time. I didn't know it was the first ever musical. That's a good tidbit, Councillor Anderson. Thank you for that. But it was this initiative was, or this production was partially funded by a grant from from a previous youth council, and I think although the timeline between approving the grant and seeing it come to fruition is I guess challenging when we do things in this room too. We want them to just to sort of just happen. So it did take it some time, but it was great to see that start to have impact, and for, as we've heard others, the youth to be really the stars of the play. Live music there too, which often it's cues in the background. So it's quite a production. If you get an opportunity, go check it out. And if you get an opportunity to see a youth council member, thank them for funding something that was so fun. I'm going to leave my update there. Oh, no, actually somewhere in there, I missed the date. There was an open house at the Men's Shed here in Squamish, and and it was great to catch up with everyone there as to what their initiatives are. And also there was a map of all the men's sheds around British Columbia, and they're having a hard time keeping up because it's ever expanding. And our men's shed here is very involved in the national, I believe is the chair of the National Foundation on Men's Sheds Society Association. I'm not quite sure where they've the naming, but it was great to see what they're up to, and also to discuss what other men's sheds are doing and what ours could evolve to over time. And also it's important to I think that anytime we can be explicit about the things that we're doing for our mental health is important, and the Men's Shed is exactly that. So they did give me, I left with a handful of little trinkets that I did mean to get to council that I couldn't find when I was leaving the house this morning. So when I find them, you will find them in your little in your mailbox. But there's some handcrafted by the Men's Shed trinkets coming your way, courtesy of the Men's Shed. Did I see a hand, Councillor? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and one thing I meant to mention, there's a can't find. I was trying to look up the phrase, but a memorial for Darcy McRae at the Bag on Saturday.
It actually got bumped. Sorry, it got postponed till into the new year. I will get you.
Okay,
I will
perfect.
update you
Right,
on that.
So
But thank
I will
you.
not announce that then.
No, but we did lose. The community did lose a member, a very active member of of the community, but particularly with the work on accessibility and so on. So there will be a service. It did get postponed. I'm not sure as to reasons, but into the new year. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, he's just such a force in terms of accessibility and sustainability, and sometimes it could be frustrating, but he would just never take no for an answer. And so he really helped move the needle on a lot of things in Squamish. So yeah, it will be an important day, and thank you for the update.
Yeah, and I have to say just briefly at the house at the roundtable on Bowen, there was some discussion around accessibility, and I could literally hear Mr. McRae's voice in my mind as we were engaging with the subject matter. So yeah, his legacy continues. If I see no other, go ahead, Councillor Snort.
I'd like to move a motion to terminate.
Ooh, sneaky. I like it. I'll second that motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Good work today.